Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful individuals. It is another epi of Liga Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you guys for the first weekend or highlights to go through from spring split action, the rapid whirlwind turnaround that is the LEC getting right back on the Rift. No G2, but that didn't stop the LEC and Europe as a whole from having some absolute slobber knockers to kick off week one in the LEC.
And again, to a lot of people's, in a positive angle, having G2 get a little bit of a breather after first stand, but still, the expectation is that you want to see them hit the ground running. But getting this example, this little sample dish of the rest of the LEC before you get G2 involved in the action, I think was also a great move and good to build up some of that excitement, some of that hype, some of that drama before you throw G2 back into the mixture of the rest of the LEC. I think that these matches, yes, some slobber knockers, some fiestas, a little bit of sloppiness around the board still, for sure. But absolutely, the excitement, I think, still was delivered from the LEC in these matches.
Hey, these guys haven't been training against the Gen Gs and BLGs over the last couple of weeks. They probably had a little bit of vacation, so got to get out some of the rest. But, fiestas are often the most entertaining games. And we begin with this KC versus Vitality series, which you play it out properly. Should have been a surprise 2-0 out of Vitality because they have this fight in the second game that's an ace. You have the Ambessa coming up in 10 seconds, but you have three core members, jungle, mid, ADC, 20 plus seconds before they're respawning, and you watch this Jax four-shot some of these turrets. You have the J4 flag. 99 times out of 100, you could end this game if you're Vitality, and you're looking at a 2-0.
You're looking at maybe like 7 to 10 seconds of distance, travel type of time as far as how you had to move. And you're adding in maybe another 4 to 5 seconds that you're probably taking down all the turrets that you would. Yeah, I think the equation absolutely was going to be there, that you could have made that rush. You could have identified the power scaling, the positions that your champions, your characters are in at this point, and what is capable for you within that gap of that death timer window. It's not taken advantage of, and that's clearly one of those ones where I think in VOD review, there will be at least 2, if not 3 or 4 different avenues that they'll talk about that are even not ending the game right away, but controlling, grabbing certain objectives, taking away resources from the other side, that you then are in that stronghold position to take out that game at that point, if you're not taking the risk or the equation in that moment to end the game, which I think by all accounts was the right choice, was going to be to end that game. It's not taken, and you see what happens when you give any squad, never mind a team that is competitive and top tier like KC is, another opportunity.
Yeah, and I mean, it would be a quick VOD review because everyone, I'm sure, would be consensus, but you can feel the hesitation in the comms, right? Because this ace happens, they're right at Baron. So you either make the call, well, we're literally hitting the Baron, just take the Baron and we can probably have the Jax solo get the inhib, which is what they ended up getting, and then you have control with the Baron buff, blah, blah, blah. But it felt like they rushed, said, okay, we can end, screw Baron, we'll go end, and then they kill the turrets, go, oh, maybe we can't end, we'll pull off, and it's disaster from there as KC comes back to steal game 2 and gets even worse because then they proceed to kind of stomp Vitality in game 3 with this yucky Jin, Annie, Cassante draft. How are you killing anything with those 3 champs?
I don't like it, and I think I'll tell anybody else that was watching it didn't like seeing what was going on out there. But it's one of those situations where I promise you put 8, 7 of the other LEC teams on the other side in that situation for Vitality, they will make that equation, make that confident choice to go for the game. And I think it was a hesitation and an unexpected, result of where you were already in that series against KC that causes them to pump the brakes. Go, let's use the Baron, and they get a little mixed, mumbled, and jumbled in their decision-making. And again, you have that against a squad like KC. That's all that they need to have that door of opportunity open for them to get back into the game, back in the series, and ultimately take the series for themselves.
And it's extra painful because the Jax performance out of Knock Knocko, he deserved to win that game with how well he was playing. And we'll take a positive angle for Vitality in that they were right there with KC. And again, Knock Naka was insane this whole set. And Vitality, dark horse to actually contend for top 3 with MKOI and KC. And you saw why in this series.
Yeah, and you want to see, obviously, the next steps after this series be a continuation of that improvement, of the strength that you are seeing from this team. That's going to be, I think, the issued homework that we're talking about when you're looking at Vitality. But yeah, right now, early good signs showing good continuation of the positive things that we talked about them that were the underlying stats of last split. So to see that come through here in the early test against KC and have an opportunity that ultimately doesn't come through, I still think is a positive sign when you're talking about the trajectory of a team like Vitality.
We want to see a whole bunch of competition in that upper tier of the LEC, and this is at least a good first step, even if none of these teams are even at 80% of what their potential can be. Other banger matchup was Navi versus MKOI, and you can talk about Navi being another one of those next squads up to kind of contest for top 3. Very competitive back and forth with it's not can we end the game, can we not? It's a poor man's xPeke with a Mr. Poby and Pierce on the Bracan doing the heavy lifting, slowly whittling down the Nexus. But oh man, it felt so sad watching this Mirwin Gwen try and clean up, try and kill these two, but just getting kited around the Nexus.
Just not possible at that point. The two stacked against him. Unfortunate, and it's one of those ones where, yeah, I think, there's some side of this where there could be the disappointment of Movistar KOI not getting that initial roaring out of the gate, the outstanding result type of thing. But absolutely good for Navi to show out like this. I think this is something that a lot of us as well wanted to see continued from that first split, was seeing Navi rise up to be one of these challenging members in the middle tier that could show enough signs to push out of the middle into that upper tier at some point. And I think this might be a good sign of that early on, knowing that where we already have Movistar KOI up in that kind of top 3, top trio at the top, taking them down in this head-to-head. And again, this series is one of those things that should feel good for Navi.
And there was definitely some suspect play out of Mirwin and even Supa at times in this series, no question. But despite the loss, MKOI obviously had 2 series on the day, went 1-1 with the win against Fnatic. Gotta highlight Jojo Pyun, because he was insane in this first week. My man had 8 solo kills. They only played 5 games, 8 solo kills, and had an average CS differential of 30, plus 30 across these 5 games. It was an absolute lane kingdom out of our Canadian hero.
This is one of those weekends that drives you crazy, because you see this and you go, why is this not every weekend? Why are we not locked in, driven, all sorts of things? Whatever the equation is, they got it right in the weeks leading up to this LEC spring split kicking off, because yes, he was a different monster out there, and certainly one of the ones where when he is driven, when he is locked in to be a factor within these games, that is a different side of Movistar KOI, and one that can take them to the next level. It didn't come through, enough due to some of the shortcomings elsewhere around the team and around the map in that series against Navi. It, of course, does in the bounce back series against Fnatic. Yes, Fnatic, a very, very different level of opponent that we will talk about, but absolutely the bounce back that you wanted to see from KOI to get at least, again, that one in the W column for them throughout this weekend.
Yeah, and again, because of the kind of crazy nature of that Navi ending, you're still feeling like... I feel like KOI, we're always talking about, you see, they don't quite reach the ceiling, but you see that potential. It's not just Jojo Pyun, it's all 5 of these guys that you see when they reach their highest of highs. You're like, I mean, this team can win the whole split.
It's one of those ones where, again, we'll take what you just saw against Navi and now, turn around 1 or 2 of those bad performing spots, right? Go to either having a more stable option that Mirwin was performing on in the top side, go to Supa and his damage output and things like that. You could find different avenues within that series to take Movistar KOI to that next level. And I think that's kind of the good and bad of this organization throughout their time, is that you can always at least see, hold, touch, even feel that type of change in the team that makes them a dominant one. You never quite can get it to settle in on the rest of the Lego blocks on the team just in time for the big event.
But the confidence was there from JoJo, and typically, you see a Lysandra pick as a counter pick. It's almost like a passive, I'm seeding the lane, and it was far from that in that Fnatic matchup, as he completely destroyed Vladdy in both of these games, and more so than being impressed with the bounce back from MKOI, we're left this first weekend with a 0-2 start for Fnatic, and you're looking at them going, I know it's early, it's week one, but I'm ready to stick a fork in them, because this team, they're not on the same page. Razor's getting baited, ulting a Nico because he thinks it's the AD carry. The trajectory from Vladdy, there's too much of a mess for Fnatic to even begin.
It's, we're checking out the Class Paper Airplane project for the LEC. We're seeing a couple of them nice and soaring, different designs and shapes, sure, but they're still generating that aerodynamic lift and getting in the air and soaring on through. And the Fnatic is that unfolded sheet of paper, and it is just slowly drifting to the ground, and I think that is everybody's expectation for this team right now. No real substantial changes coming through in the time off between winter split and spring split, and again, knowing the situation around the LEC, the situation regarding Fnatic on and off the Rift, there should never have been an expectation that you were going to see a miraculous turnaround, and we certainly have not seen any of that miraculous turnaround.
Lowest, again, it's only 2 series, but lowest team KDA, lowest plates per game. This team is, there's more talent on this roster than what we're seeing early on, and even what we saw last year. But, we've heard all the rumors and inklings of the organization behind the scenes not being incredibly understaffed in terms of the coaching staff. The organization itself is kind of fumbling, and it's, this has already happened with TSM, where Org that's so iconic within their region that you would never imagine them leaving. And Fnatic is in that category, but more and more, even in 2027, I'm like, is this the end of Fnatic as a whole?
Very much so is a very concerning situation, knowing, again, the problems that we see on Rift, but especially knowing the noise and the conversation around the outside situation about the organization. That is one of those ones where, yes, I think you can start to worry about something like that, about what will happen to the organization, to the franchise, whether it can have a rebirth, a renaissance, whether someone needs to step in to that spot and replace them, whatever it needs to be. It's becoming one of those critical situations of evaluation of health for the status of the LEC when you are talking about such an iconic, historic, storied franchise as in Fnatic.
It's not this G2 Fnatic two-headed demon of the LEC anymore. There's all these other teams that we've talked about, which makes it even more complicated. But if, again, only 6 teams make playoffs, if Fnatic doesn't even make it to playoffs, that's like an all-time low for the organization. And yeah, it doesn't make me feel great about the future for this squad, but feel bad for the 0-2 start for them so far. Unfortunately, also a 0-2 start for another squad. Maybe not quite as an iconic an organization, at least within League of Legends. SK has been around for a long time, but a lot of iconic players, and boy, did we have a roller coaster just microwaving in on the mid lane this weekend. Leader, we get a solid Yasuo performance. We get Oriana Sombreros. We get Zed getting solo killed. We get Yone getting solo killed by a Victor. This was just a mess from start to finish. Again, just looking at the mid lane for SK.
The problem is, this hasn't been the mess that, we just showed up and it's what is this? We got to clean it up now. We've been at the same restaurant every weekend, and every weekend there's the same table that has a kid throwing a fit with their spaghetti up onto the ceiling, spilling a drink on the floor, whatever. And that seems to be not only all of SK, but that child in particular is specifically Leader, and the performances that we have seen from him have been all over the place, and none of them have been the all over the place, but here's the sunlight, here's your candy, whatever. It's been, well, here's the throw up, here's the doggy doo-doo, here's, this mess and crayons on the wall and whatever. It has not been any sort of productive or pretty thing for him. And it's been unfortunate because a lot of people, ourselves included, predicted that was going to be the more likely situation that would play out with this SK roster at the very least throughout that winter split. And then the questions of whether you would make a replacement, make a change, whether that would be trying to shoot for the stars with someone like Nemesis, which I don't think was going to ever work on both sides of the party equation as far as whether you would join something like this. But you knew that a change was going to have to be in that position if you were going to find any stability, any level of climbing up this ladder of the LEC. Change didn't happen, didn't come through, and you see these games and you see these performances, and I think, again, it is very clear that this is a player that is not able to withstand the pressures, the tenacity that is at this type of level and focus and preparation. I think it's really hurting SK Gaming.
If you can't play the meta champions that are like an Orianna, and you do your pocket pick melee assassins, but you're getting solo killed by a Mel, you're getting solo killed by a Victor, then I'm scratching my head. What are you bringing value-wise to the team other than unpredictability?
Like, it was one of those things where, again, like, even just going off of the game that's going on right now as we are recording this one and seeing only little glimpses of it, all I've seen is from him saying, all right, we'll take the Yone, 3 or 4 members deep and have my health bar eliminated. Then I got to back out of this fight and everyone else is out of it too. And there goes the objective over to the enemy team. These type of things cannot be happening on the consistent basis that they are for Leader individually within his lane and elsewhere for this SK team if they're going to find any type of traction within the LEC.
And I mean, so far, and maybe even going back to last split, okay, we get an Anivia top for Wonder. That's fun. He's holding his own and is sometimes in ELO hell. But really, the main shining point of SK so far is Yopa's trying his best as the young guy on this veteran roster to kind of stand out, and he was even ahead in gold despite being down like 10k in their last loss to Heretics. So the young guy is, developing well, and is probably the only guy on SK who's going to have a job come 2027.
Which sure is one avenue of finding talent, right? Sorting it out through that, and again, nurturing, developing it to get stronger. I don't think this is the exact mix of the group that you want. If that's your goal in finding a young, talented player to build and develop around and add to your stable type of thing, the rest of this group is not that project as well. So there's very conflicting things going on within SK as far as directions that they should be going, are available to them, all sorts of things like that. And then the on the rift direction and product isn't any better.
So obviously Navi did take down SK. We got Heretics and Vitality as the last matchup for week 1 that, again, as we're recording, is about to kick off. Somehow there's a world, Team Heretics had a dominant win against SK. If Vitality fall to 0-2, again, they should beat Heretics. But all of a sudden you're going, oh my, this team was close to beating KC and now we're going 0-2 to start?
That would be the mega slip up, the playing down to your opponent type of situation where you aren't as locked in, aren't as ferocious in this matchup because you're not expecting the same out of it. But that would obviously be the crucial mistake. You need to bring it every single day, every single minute of these matches, and especially if you are a squad like Vitality that needs not only to climb up this ladder and prove yourself within these other competitive teams in the LEC, but get the bounce back in that individual hyper focus of this weekend of getting that evening score for your record that you dropped to KC.
You want to prove that you're in that KC top 3 territory. You need a swift, clean, wow, they don't do clean. You need a 2-0 if you're Vitality in this Team Heretics matchup. Even though Heretics are, a kind of upstart team that's performing better than I think a lot of people were expecting. LPL obviously isn't on the Rift yet, but with all the Nahu drama, we knew something was going to happen. He's no longer there. Milky Way has been cleared of his match-fixing allegations, but he will not be joining Top Esports. They're returning to a familiar face in Tien coming back, and also hearing that the rumors are true, Jackie Love will also be returning for spring. So Tien and Jackie Love coming in, all of a sudden top esports are right back in top 3 territory in the LPL, right?
I think this has to be the biggest rebound from what has been a disaster embarrassment situation that we've ever seen. Never mind LPL, probably the entirety of League of Legends and esports in general. Wild stuff going on through. Number one, yes, Nehu getting that permanent ban, away from the LPL and everything else like that. And of course, I think, a very swift, strong, and appropriate response to something as significant, as serious an accusation and thing to go over like this. I think it also does quite clearly allow for an avenue for Milky Ways to be forgiven, to be pardoned when realization of what was going on in his situation.
Said,
and this
this guy wasn't so bad at all.
Quite a significant difference. So yeah, welcome back, Milky Ways, and I'm very hopeful that we do find you on a roster very soon and getting back to seeing you on Summoner's Rift and applying and improving yourself in your early career still. And then I think you go straight to the top esports replacements that will be coming on through, and that is in obviously Tien and Jackie Love returning to the team in that bottom lane. These are things that we discussed were going to be necessary for this top esports team to be a contender, to be one of the top options in the LPL in this next split and moving towards Worlds qualification. Was having one Jackie Love down in your bottom lane. That was the number one thing that we required from this team. And number two was solving the jungle, solving some of these other issues for the team. And Tien is a very reliable, very known commodity that will step into this team, not only known as far as what he can do, but known by these players. He's played with these guys before. He knows them. I've got faith in this one being the right steps for top esports to find themselves in the mix of the very top teams within the LPL.
And how about, this was maybe individually one of the best splits from Cream. There were a lot of 1v9 performances out of him, while his jungler is actively trying to lose the game against him. So all the memes you can have about Tien, it's going to be a mega upgrade. So if Cream is close to the level he was last split with Tien and Jackie Love coming, TES could end up being the main contenders for BLG as a rival.
Yeah, and I think it's also one of those ones where very clearly it's someone that is going to not only help Cream in the situation that you've laid out where he already was improving himself, never mind being dragged back down by your match-fixing jungler at that point, taking the bets. I think someone in the top side, Mr. 369, I think he's going to benefit from this type of situation and having these available for him. I think that is absolutely one of the things that you can look at for top esports to get a little bit more out of their team is having, again, what Tien will facilitate not only for Cream in the mid lane, but as well going to the top side.
Best off-season moves is bringing back two guys who used to be on the squad for top esports. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you, Stunners. Thanks for hanging out as always.